depending on whether there is a script already or a basis of a script, or get the script sent over, read through it, and then take any of those sort of subject matters that the script might delve into and research it. Do a sort of basic sort of research, but just so you're not coming into the rehearsal room totally unaware of the subject matter. And especially, I think, with Make It Happen in particular, because it really isn't part of theatre world. You don't really do, you've not really looked into things like that before. So that was really important to do that and to understand that. And then the director and the designer would usually get together before everybody else and have a really good idea of concept of where they want to take it, because there's a myriad of ways to take a subject and put it onto the stage. And so they would usually have got together, and then hopefully then you can then be brought into that process and have a look, see what they're looking at and what they're thinking, and then hopefully add into that, or suggest things. By this point, we would be heading towards first days of rehearsals. The designer would normally by that point have a model box made, and I would get then the ground plan to whichever theatre that we're starting off in anyway, and look at that with set, and then start to gather ideas of what type of equipment I'd like to use in order to get certain effects, and also where I want to place them in regards to what we're putting physically on stage for the set. And we usually like to get that done at least, first week of rehearsal or something like that. But it's nice to get a lighting plan done before that, just so then you can, because you're never wedded to one, if you've got one in the bag, as it were, then you can chop and change it around as you realise, well, that's not going to work, or that's not going to give the effect that I need. So that would be my next step. With Make It Happen, which was brilliant, 6 months before we even got into the rehearsal room, we had great meetings where we do, full day meetings, which is really unusual, but actually was fantastic for this particular play, because it was so involved, there was so much going on in it, that we needed to step through the script. So we did that. So Andrew is our director, Anna and her associate, and Lewis, who was the video designer, our production manager, was there. So there was a group of us, and sound designer, and there was a group of us who got together through and had a few days where we stepped through the script and worked out the types of things we'd like to try and achieve, or even sort of went back to James sometimes and said, we wonder whether this is going to work. They also then, for Make It Happen, which sometimes does happen with other plays, we had a week here at NTS where we brought in some very talented actors who basically interrogated the script, and with Andrew, with sound, and at the end of it, we did a sort of mini showing, I suppose, or a read-through for all the different myriad of theatres that were co-producers on the show, which was great. But again, that was brilliant because it enabled us all, writers and designers and that, to re-look at what we were thinking and perhaps change things and that. That doesn't happen very much, but it is brilliant when it does happen, because it's really useful before you actually get into the rehearsal room, because all of a sudden you'll get into the rehearsal room, especially with a show like this, which is a fairly big cast, the time goes like that, and there's so much to do, like for the director and the movement directors, and that you don't really get a chance to look, to do any prep, do any other sort of like creative prep. So it's nice having that in the bank. Then you can approach the rehearsals, sort of say, oh, do you remember actually, Andrew, when we talked about that, perhaps that's where that goes, or, and things like that, which is lovely, yeah. So, yeah, that's what I normally do, is kind of get things prepped in that sort of way. And then my favourite bit, which is to sit in the rehearsal room and watch really talented performers just enjoy what they do, and really enjoy that, which is it's always such a privilege to do, to be in those rooms. But Make It Happen, the set was tall. There was a lot of walls going on. There wasn't much opportunity, well, there was no opportunity for any side lights, because each side had a bank of walls that were tightly hewn together. And so for the video design, so they had places to play their design on. Also, because it was so tall, it would have been super hard to focus anything that you needed to actually physically get your hands on. So in lighting, you know, we have our generic lights, that's when you physically get a light and pull your shutters or barn doors, point the light to where you want it. So the rig that I put together was just a moving light rig, because once we got it up there, it would have been really hard to physically get to the lights. And so at least with the moving lights, you can just be on the lighting desk and move them that way and focus them that way. So that's why I did the rig in that way. Even though it was a big show and that, we knew that we had a limited amount of time to transfer from Dundee. So we teched it in Dundee and then transferred to the Festival Theatre in Edinburgh to open it, to do its official open. And there was a very small amount of time to put the show on a very different stage to Dundee. So I couldn't have too many lights. You could chuck loads of lights in the air, and you know, I was very lucky because NTS, you know, that there was a very generous budget to hire kit. But there's no point in putting the lights up if you can't then transfer, because you haven't got time to sort of like do, you know, touch every light, as it were. So so I did a rig that was quite a modest rig in a lot of ways, but hard-working. It's all down to set at the end of the day, where your set is. So I could only get 2 bars overhead because actually there was a lot of flying, and then there was a lot of bars used up to make sure those walls were safe and everything as well. So I didn't have much space up there anyway to put any lights up, really. But yeah, so that really informed me of where I was going to put everything. The fact that I couldn't do loads of side light and well, hardly anything at all, really, because of the walls and that, which is fine. That freed up those areas on the sides. We were working with a cyc at the end of the show, which you don't see until right at the end of the show. The cyc is a cyclorama, and it's a massive piece of material, and it can be anything from cloth to a BP screen, and it's something you can project light onto, and it will take a block of light, or you can do shapes onto it and that. It's always usually at the back of a set, and it is used to sort of frame a picture, really, and to create a picture. We knew we wanted it to be lots of shafts, to be able to go from very sharp-lined, corporate-y sort of feel into the underworld of the murky underworld and of the volcanic sort of feels of Edinburgh and all of that. So that was our guide on it. So yeah, moving lights, nice sharp lines for a lot of the show. Yeah, again, it's like the front of house fixtures are used. There isn't loads, there's hardly anything, but everything that we did have on there worked very hard in order to get into all those places. Yeah, it's quite funny when you go into a massive theatre. Edinburgh International Festival Theatre is huge, and you sort of, when you look at the small amount of kit you've got around the house, you go, oh no, you know, but it's fine, you know, as long as you use it well, then it's fine, yeah. I mean, the whole thing with the glowing globe and that was really fun. We knew that there was going to be some sort of globes that changed through the piece and got bigger and bigger. And working with our magic man, Will Houston, working with him and swapping in and out and getting those made to be very specific, that you could hold them. I had complete control of them for any of the swaps and things like that, but also could run around the stage as Sandy does with a couple of them. And to have that complete control that was really good fun. And I was very much pointed by him. I know that this would work, and taking that guidance, because that's his discipline. With lighting, it's really weird, because when you're lighting a show, but more often than not, you start doing it by being by yourself in the theatre and plotting away before everyone gets in to start tech and that, and you have some plotting sessions. And sometimes you totally forget that there are other disciplines that you're not by yourself. So sometimes you overlight things and all the rest of it, and then like Lewis will come along with his amazing, beautiful, creative work, and you kind of go, oh no, hang on a minute, I don't have to work so hard there. You start pulling things out. I really enjoy doing that, and I enjoy collaborating with that. But you do have to tell yourself, no, remember, like, you know, Lewis is going to do this sort of stuff, so you don't have to do that. Pull away. Don't muddy the air, as it were, you know. So that was a really lovely thing to do. I always describe it like being in a band or an orchestra or something where you know, perhaps you play bass and you're just there underlying but if you took it away, you'd sort of notice, but you wouldn't quite know what it was. And that's what I think it is about theatre and lighting, and I'm sure it's the same with the other guys and everything as well, that if you took a little element away, there'd be something not quite right about it, so you just pop it back in, and and all of a sudden you've got a really good, you know, a full piece, as it were. Yeah, it's like being in an orchestra. In the rehearsal room, towards the end of the rehearsals, hopefully they'll start doing runs of the show. So just in the rehearsal room, and you'll go along with the script and watch what they're doing, mark in your script where you think you're going to put elect cues, where you want something to change or tonally change, and you mark that all up, create a elect cue list, which then you'll go into. So every single cue that you've got to create a scene, create a picture, essentially. And then hopefully you'll be given like a couple of sessions in the theatre with the set, and it means you can go to dark. So you go get all the workers turned off and all the rest of it, and you start plotting your cues. I'll start from the beginning and work my way through the show. And if it's a play that's got lots of different scenes with lots of different furniture and all the rest of it, then stage management will come in and change the stage to whatever scene you're in. If I'm lucky enough, I have really good programmers with me, and I'll have my lighting plan that I've drawn up all those weeks before in front of me, and I will literally say things like, okay, 48, let's just bring that up, let's make a preset. Okay, just point it to downstage right. You're just going to try and hit that table there. Okay, great. Can you bring your upstage shutter in, your downstage shutter in, sharpen it a little bit? No, yeah, okay. And frost that. Okay, great. Put that in as a preset 5. Just label it as Sandy's table. With text, you've only got a certain amount of time to tech it in. So however many days, depending on the show. You need to get through the tech because it's really, really important to do a run at some point before showing it to audiences and things like that. For safety more than anything, especially with shows like this, when there's a lot of people and a lot of things happening. And we have a DSM, they call the show, and any time I want to stop, or if the director wants to stop so we can discuss what we're looking at, we'll say stop, because it's our tech at the end of the day. It's the time for all the creatives to now do their work. And the actors discover on the set where they're going, but it's mostly about lighting, sound, video and design, and bringing that together, all of those disciplines together. So any one of us can stop the tech at any point. Say, okay, I'm just going to stop there. Okay, hang on a minute. Right, and move the lights if I'm trying to catch people, and update presets, you know, if I'm trying to catch people, or if the look actually is wrong and it's not working well, then we'll stop and we're going to go, okay, right, should we have a think on that then and change it there and then. It's the weirdest feeling in the world, because lighting is the only discipline where you can't show anyone what you're doing until you get into tech. So it's almost like you're showing your paintings in front of everybody. So you have to sort of hold your nerve a little bit, and hopefully you've got the right sort of ideas and it's not too much of a disaster. Yeah, it can be really nerve-wracking. Like with sound design and that, they'll have it in the rehearsal room. They'll have the essence of what it is in the rehearsal room. With lighting, you literally just kind of go, okay, this is what I was thinking. And everyone looks at it at the same time. It's terrifying. Yeah, stop every time you need to stop, just to clarify positions as practically as that. Or if I'm not quite happy with the look, or I want to ask Andrew about that, or with Lewis, who I work very close with because we're both visual artists, we'll stop and we'll go, okay, right, actually I was thinking of doing that, and we'll change. And you change things there and then. Or if it's something a little bit more complex, especially with movement pieces, when you might have, like, within 30 seconds about 30 cues, you very, very often will note it, what you need to do, and just say, okay, right, I need to change that, but actually, Andrew, what I'm going to do is I'll do that in that bit of time I've got, because you don't want to hold things up too much as well, because you're very aware that you want to get to the end of the show so you can then run it and everyone can then have a good feeling about if we've got it right. You know what I mean? And you can't tell until you run it. You just end up looking at different scenes, but you're just looking at the minutiae of that, and actually it might not work at all in the whole sequencing. So yeah, so that's the tech. It's always, it's all, you know, if you get a lovely team, it's brilliant. It's brilliant fun, and it's sort of, yeah, everyone sort of helps each other. You know what I mean? So it's all good. It's all good. So that idea of there being this psyche of being at the top of Carlton Hill, a version of Carlton Hill in Edinburgh, was there from the off from Anna, our set designer. She'd produced a storyboard and there were a load of renders on it, really beautifully done. And the end image always had this sort of horizon light. We'd always imagined that it would be, actually the light would be in from the beginning. So as the psyche started, so the psyche at the back of the stage, what's lovely in our show is that we have this psyche that nobody knows is there until right at the end. So it's quite a big thing to do, to take up, because it takes up quite a lot of room and uses a lot of lights in order to light it, because they're used invariably very wide, very tall. But there was something, we just wanted that moment when the Furies, they take off the garments that they've been put on, these sort of weird shapes and all the rest of it, and they become the people, the everyday people who this whole banking crisis has affected. This light was always going to be in from the start of that, and then it would light, and then it would, as the sun rose, so the psyche starts to light, it would rise up and then start to get bright, and then by the time Fred Goodwin, played by Sandy, it comes on, it would be at its height at that point, and that would be the sun, and then we'd have that final scene and final song, and then black. What we realised was that in some ways it was the one way round. I don't know, it was like too theatrical in a sort of like, oh, isn't this lovely? We didn't want it to be like everyone feeling lovely and safe and that, you know, there's still a lot of questions, there's a lot of answers, you know, that have never been given, and so we didn't want this sort of like, oh, moment, and then have a conversation between Fred and Adam Smith and everything to be, oh, well, that's all right then, thank God for that, you know, because that's not the case, it's not as simple as that. So we flipped it, so for, I think about 3 previews, we had it doing it that way. And also what we realised as well is the beautiful work that Lewis was doing on the buildings, we couldn't see because the light was overtaking everything. So we said, well, why don't we flip it? Why don't we make it really dark, that Lewis can do his gorgeous, the way the texture just falls down those buildings and that. And then as he's doing that, I'll just do psyche and just gently start to bring the psyche up. The blocks will move into the Carlton Hill. We'll have the scene, and then in that final reprise of the song, the light will then come down, and it's more sort of like picking out the figures and the people and all the characters of what, you know, have been in the show. So rather than it being a light moment, it's more of a highlighting the figures and also us, the audience. It deliberately blinds the audience. It's unforgiving, I think, which is good. I think that's good, and I think it's sort of there is a moment at the end where Fred looks out at us, right at the end, and I think it's right that he looks out at us, sees us. So he's not apologetic at the end of it, but there is a recognition, and hopefully the audience are lit enough at that point that there is this. It's really important there's that connection, because the rest of the cast on stage are us, you know, at that point. So yeah, so it was a good choice to swap it. Sometimes I call it killing. Oh, this is going to sound dreadful now, because I don't mean it like really cruelly, but killing your puppies or killing your babies. You sort of like have really great ideas, and then you kind of go, yeah, another time that's the wrong way, or that's the wrong way around. Let's swap it. Let's And being, you know, everyone being brave enough to do that. And kind of, yeah.
I'm getting tired and I need somewhere to begin, somewhere to begin.